Hello, my name is Joyce and today I will be presenting my final project for Art and Culture of Japan. For my pre-1600 piece of art, I chose to replicate a blue and white ware. It features a hare leaping over the waves surrounded with clover-shaped art. This piece was created in the 17th century and has porcelain with underglazed cobalt. I chose this beautiful ware because it looked so pleasing to the eye, yet very simple. I loved how my eyes focused on the hare in the center, but moved around through the plates. The color scheme of blue and white was also such an elegant color combination for this piece, enhancing it as a whole. In ancient history, the creation of blue and white porcelain pieces of art was created by starting off by collecting various raw materials. These raw materials would be used for the white clay that was used to produce white porcelain from many regions in the Korean peninsula. Later in the 1610s, the material used for these porcelain pieces advanced into a stone called rhyolite for white porcelain productions when it was discovered by the Koreans in 1610. Along with the base of the piece to create the blue and white ware, a porcelain paint from China was used for the underglaze blue color, specifically native cobalt ore. And this was imported into Japan. So a red Arabian earth, which was potentially erythrocrite, was used for painting these pieces as well, and together the colors were produced onto the ware. And using these paint materials, it was completed, the arts. So after gathering all the necessary materials, the artist would first mold the clay into the desired shape. This could be a plate, a vase, and it could just go on and on. And then after that, the fire in the kiln would allow the temperatures to be high enough to harden the piece. So even in the medieval times, the kilning process was acknowledged by artists. And after the firing process, it would be ready to be painted using the paint materials that were gathered. So the process of firing the piece would actually be repeated after the painting was finished onto the ware. And this would basically harden the design and art on the ware, making it permanent. So it wouldn't rub off or anything. Now, the history context of blue and white wares was that during the 1610s, porcelain was made in Japan for the first time in the Arita region. They utilized the techniques of the potters from the Korean peninsula. These wares were known as imari ware, named after the port from which they were shipped to other regions. Arita initially emulated the blue and white porcelain of Jing-Dezhen in China, but later developed dramatically by acquiring the overglaze enameling technique from China, and from the later half of the 17th century through the first half of the 18th century. Imari ware was exported to European countries by the Dutch East India Company, which brought the ware straight into the spotlight. An array of magnificent styles of ware were produced in Arita throughout its history of development. So basically, this ware had traveled all around the world and had gained very popular. And this is why I chose this ware. I also found it very beautiful, and I'm going to show you the ware that I created. So as I explained earlier, there is a hare leaping over these ocean waves, a form of water. I'm not 100% sure what these waters were. And then, as I explained, there were clover-like pieces of art surrounding it in a circle. And how I created this piece was I went into a little shop and then I requested if they had any plate structures that looked like this, and they did. And then I made sure that the materials of the plate itself was similar to the ones that were used in the medieval times. And then after I was told that it was quite similar, I then proceeded to get the paint, and then I painted all of these. And then, you know, as they did in the medieval times, they put it into the kiln and then they fired it, allowing this to heat up and harden. And now it's just stuck on, it won't rub off because it had been heated in the kiln, and this was the final product. And something that I'd like to mention is how beautiful the colors really are. So the white and blue, they really complement each other, and it makes the piece look quite elegant and beautiful. And this is why I initially chose this piece, because I loved how the colors looked very beautiful together, complement each other very well, and I loved how simple yet elegant this piece was. So once again, if you look at it one more time, you can see how your eyes kind of drawn to the middle where the hair is leaping over the waves, and your eyes kind of go around in the circular kind of pattern. So this is the way that I replicated. Now, speaking of more art, for my post 1600 piece of art, I chose to replicate the painting named the Enso Circle. I chose this piece of medieval Japanese art because, let's be honest, the circle looked very easy and simple to replicate. But if we get deeper into this piece had quite unique characteristics and steps that caught my eye compared to other art pieces. So the Enso Circle required not only the physical aspect of painting, but required a mental, emotional, and spiritual aspect as well. A deep meditation had to be performed prior to painting this piece in order to create it, which really got my attention. I thought this would be an interesting thing to try. So the history of the Enso Circle was that it was a sacred symbol in Zen Buddhism that had a representation of enlightenment, power, as well as the universe itself. It was originated from China in the 28th century BC into Japan in the 5th century AD. And it was mainly practiced by Buddhist monks and nuns before being adopted as an administrative tool for the state. Eastern calligraphy technique was widely influenced by Zen thought. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put in the image of my piece that I created. I don't happen to have it right now, but what I did was I got Japanese paper, I got a large brush, and I got sumi ink, which was used in the medieval times as well. And prior to the physical aspect of painting the circle, I went ahead and I watched a YouTube video to get my emotional, spiritual, and mental state prepared to create this piece of art. So I meditated for a bit and I followed the instructions of meditation, and then I proceeded to paint the circle. So this process was very quick as I expected, and the circle came out quite similar to what I thought it would come out as. It had the nice feathering effect at the end of the circle. It was nice and thick, and it just looked quite lovely on the paper. I know it's just a circle, but I thought it looked quite lovely considering I had to meditate for 15 minutes prior to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and place that into this video. And why I chose the Enso Circle once again was for the meditative part of it as well as the simplicity of it. So these are my two pieces that I replicated, and I want to thank everyone for taking their time to listen, and I want to thank Michael as well for everything. So thank you guys very much. Now, since I couldn't find my Enso Circle piece that I had finished, here is the one that I found on the web. And so the techniques which preceded and succeeded this Enso Circle was that it included the physical body as well as the mentality of the artist. So the first step in creating this piece was being complete mentally and spiritually, and this was achieved through deep meditation, which we practiced in order to establish a piece that symbolizes enlightenment, power, in the universe. So after the artist was prepared mentally and spiritually, he would then dip his brush into his paint, and with the release of breath, he would use a single brush stroke to create the Enso Circle.